a divine paradigm of love and universal consciousness, with your host, Janet Kira Lessin and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Together, we transform the world.
And now, here are your hosts, Janet Kira and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Back today to ourselves. Let's talk to Sean in a moment, sir. And I'll begin with our introduction. I am your host, Janet Kira Lessin. Thank you, Sean, and Dr. Sasha Lessin. And today we interview our very special guests, Shelley-Stockwell-Nicholas and Peter Blum. And let me first read Shelley's bio. We're going to bring on Shelley first, and then we're going to bring on Peter. Shelley-Stockwell-Nicholas, PhD, is the president of the International Hypnosis Federation, hypnosisfederation.com. Dr. Shelley has received 3 Lifetime Achievement Awards and figures she'd best tell you her best stories before time runs out, but that's another story. She's a popular newspaper columnist and media personality. Dr. Shelley is the author of 17 books, including Everything You Ever Wanted to Know About Everything, The Mysteries of Magnificent You, and Denial is Not a River in Egypt. She's appeared on hundreds of radio and television talk shows and in major publications worldwide. And she just so happens to be Dr. Sasha Lessin's baby sister. Let me quickly give you Peter's bio, and then Dr. Lessin, Sasha will talk, and then we'll bring on Shelley. Peter Blum is the author of the Hypnotic Power of Stories. He's a hypnotherapist, healer, and shaman. And Peter celebrates the universal trance of your imagination and inner resources. Blum comes from Woodstock, New York, and is the creator of the Woodstock Story Festival. And this festival, this is a 2-day festival, Woodstock Story Festival, April 30th to May 1st, 2016. Make sure you get up there to Woodstock, New York. So, Sash, what would you like to say?
Well, I just did a hypnosis. I'm already a hypnotist, but I did an update on my skills with Shelley-Stockwell-Nicholas, and you are under my power, buy our books. And anyway, that's not. It doesn't work that way anyhow. But I want to tell you that Shelley's going to tell us how to dehypnotize ourselves, because believe me, the media and the society hypnotizes us. It hypnotizes soldiers to kill people, which no human being would really do if they weren't hypnotized. And I got to warn you that Peter Blum expresses himself with making sounds, not just by words. So during Shelley's talk or throughout, you may hear sounds, and you know who it is. It's Peter.
So, Shelley, welcome to our show.
Thank you.
And what else would you like to tell our listeners that we missed in your bio?
Well, first of all, I'm so thrilled to meet you out there, and maybe I've met you before, because I use hypnosis, and I suspect you're hip and you gnosis everything. What I'd like to talk about today is not only hypnosis, but dehypnotizing ourselves from ridiculous trances we may put ourselves into. So hypnosis is my most favorite subject, and I've been doing hypnosis for about 38 years. And I'm obsessed, I must admit, and my self-talk centers greatly around listening to what I'm saying to myself. So one of the first things that happens to people in their life, as maybe you figured out there and listening to this, is we hypnotize ourselves by the stories we tell ourselves, by the inner dialogue that happens when we're chatting with some invisible force within us. And that invisible conversation that is very notable to yourself can either make you miserable or make you happy, can make you buy things you don't want, or be frugal with your money. And I thought before we would start about how to dehypnotize you,
Can I ask you before we
Yes.
get into that, how did you get into hypnosis? What made you get obsessed with it?
Good question. Well, I used to be we called ourselves flight attendants or hostesses for a major airline that some people out there may not have heard of anymore. It was called Trans World Airlines, TWA. And TWA was an international carrier, and it was started by Howard Hughes. And we traveled all over the world. And I had the wonderful experience of joining in 1969. In 1969, I went to a hypnotist because I'd like to stop eating so much sugar. And it was amazing because I went for one session and I didn't eat sugar for a week. And I went back for a second session and then I didn't eat sugar for a year. And I thought, this is absolutely ridiculous. This guy talked to me for just a minute. He actually put me on a listening device with headphones, and I heard little birdie tweet sounds. And then he basically said one sentence: don't eat sugar. And it worked. It was like, this is ridiculous. How can you say something? And I came to find out that that's really how fast and efficiently hypnosis can work. However, this little fellow was a very poor hypnotist, didn't know it at the time. So I wanted to learn how to do this thing. And in 1969, nobody would teach you. I read what few books there were, like Think and Grow Rich and a couple of others, and The Power of Positive Thinking. And in both of those cases, How to Win Friends and Influence People was another one I read. They didn't really tell you how to do it. So I went back to the funny little man, paid him thousands of dollars, and he taught me one thing, which is actually probably profound, but not worth thousands of dollars, but I'll give it away for free. He said, it's inside every one of us to be wise. Everyone knows their own answers. And the moment you think you know better than another person, you're in illusion. Because there's only one person who knows the truth for themselves. And it's not your mother, it's not your father, it's not your sisters and brothers, it's not your best friends, certainly not society. You know the answers. What will serve you best to be your best, to celebrate your best. And when you discern that, then things work better. So here I was, a flight attendant, stewardess, hostess, as we call ourselves.
Yes.
And I would mention to my fellow practitioners, because I did become a hypnotist, I'd say I'm a hypnotist, and they, not knowing what the heck hypnosis was, would say to me, you're a hypnotist? Read my palm.
Sure.
I mean, so I had no connection in my brain between palm reading and hypnosis, but I would take their palm and I would make up gigantic stories. And that's where my friend Peter-Blum comes in, because he's the great storyteller. And so I would make up these stories and they would go, oh, that's amazing. How did you know that about me? And I just thought I was making it up. But in fact, I was using a power of the mind that we all possess. And that is intuition. And that could be two words, intuition. Mm-hmm. In other words, the idea that we can take ourselves into a wishful state where we can know more than we know.
Well, what is hypnosis? Since they didn't know, they thought it was palm reading. What is hypnosis?
Well, hypnosis is a state of awareness. Nobody has a fabulous definition. I have this little one that I like to fall back on. It goes like this. Hypnosis is a natural state. And by natural, I mean every one of the people listening here, and you, Janet, and you, Sasha, and you, Peter, every one of you and people here in our audience, they have taken themselves in and out of trance throughout their day. They just didn't call it that. So if you're riding in the car and you miss the exits when you go from here to there, or if you're daydreaming, or if you're in cyberspace, like, have you ever seen a kid playing a computer game and you rip the control out of their hands and they have this dazed look in their face? You just woke them up from the trance of cyberspace. Or people go into trance when they listen to Peter's music. It's just very hypnotic, just takes you into an altered state. It's like fabulous. People go into altered states, well, when they're in love. That's probably the primary altered state. And probably the number one hypnotist in the world before yourself is your mother. Mm-hmm. Because your mother has been killing you softly with her song since you first began life, probably in the womb, maybe before that. And she starts to play on your inner mind. And when your mommy says something about you, you believe her. And you believe her because, listen, if you don't believe your mom, she won't give you the milk. And if mom doesn't give you the milk, then you die. So it becomes life and death to believe your mom. And belief is a driving force for hypnosis. Belief is a driving force in hypnosis. I'm going to say it again, and Peter's going to hit a little note for me. Belief is a driving force in hypnosis. Belief is a driving force in hypnosis, and belief comes from repeated self-suggestion, or from cultural suggestion, or from mommy-daddy suggestion. And once you believe something, a weird thing happens in your brain. You look and you perceive and you smell and taste and hear and intuit and see factoids that will support that belief. And you'll ignore or bypass things that don't support that belief. So we're all navigating to enforce our beliefs so we can be right. But being right may not be truth. Well, it may be for you, but it may not be even your best truth. So here I was, a hypnotist, helping myself not eat sugar. And then I was reading poems. And then I'd say, well, let me teach you some hypnosis. And I wound up hypnotizing flight attendants. Then I wound up hypnotizing pilots.
Oh my gosh.
And then, yeah, a pilot would say, hey, can you bring me an aspirin? You know, and I'd say, hey, I'll tell you what, if I can get rid of your headache right now without an aspirin, would that be okay with you? And they'd go, okay, but then give me an aspirin when this doesn't work. And so I would do a very rapid induction, taking all of 2 minutes, and the pilot's headache would vanish. And they'd say, how did you do that? And I would say, magic. And I'd walk out of the cockpit. But it wasn't magic, it was hypnosis. Eventually, they used my hypnosis tapes at that time for studies they did on pilots and jet lag. And eventually, my union sent me around the system to train flight attendants to deal with stress. So I became very proficient as a hypnotist because I was an airline hypnotist. I also became very proficient in talking to people because everyone in the world, I think, has a favorite subject. What do you reckon that would be, Janet?
Oh, me?
Yeah. Themselves.
Yes.
And everybody is the center of their universe, and everybody absolutely thrives on talking about their favorite subject or thinking about their favorite subject and talking to their favorite person themselves. And so I became an expert with passengers because I would go into the cabin and I would get to interface and talk to passengers. It was really fun and stimulating, and I just met some really amazing, famous, not famous, everybody kind of people for 22 years. So I was both a hypnotist and a flight attendant for all those years in the airline. And it was a lot of fun. What I hope to do in this talk today is to teach your listeners how to use self-hypnosis for themselves so that they can A, take on suggestions they want, and B, eliminate ridiculous suggestions that may not serve them well.
Sounds good. So, one last question.
Yes.
Because, you know, our listeners probably don't know, but you also channel.
I
You're
do.
Psychic in your channel. You want to talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure. So if I know that if I could see the listeners out there and I were to say, how many of you have heard a message from the other side, from someone who's crossed over? And I would reckon at least half of the listeners would be raising their hand right now. And then if I were to ask everyone out there, how many of you have been to a place for the first time and yet you know all about that place? Or how many of you have met someone new? You don't know them, but you know all about them. And there's all kinds of hands raising because we seem to have this natural instinct to channel or know more than we know. Especially experiencers out there, you've channeled perhaps guides or aliens or higher self or subpersonalities, entities. I always say channeling is a dead entity job. Now, interestingly enough, all that ridiculous palm reading that I didn't know what I was doing was actually pretty accurate. And one day I realized, well, if I put myself in a trance, I might be more psychic. And then I had the weird experience of a flight attendant who thought I was a healer, which I wasn't. I was just a hypnotist and a pretend palm reader. She said to me, my daughter's very ill and she's dying. And you've never met her, but you did write her birth announcement. Would you please go to the hospital and heal her? So I wound up at a hospital in Laguna Beach, California. And there was this beautiful little girl. It was just before her 4th birthday. And I tried to hypnotize her to be well. And so I told her, heart is beating, your lungs are inflating, you're coming back, you feel great. And she had this machine on her, one of these machines that go beep, beep, beep. It was a heart monitor. And there was another machine that was going, and it was pushing air in and out of her lungs because the child was comatose.
Wow.
She was just comatose. And so there was this child, and I tried to hypnotize her to wellness, and nothing happened. And the second night I went back with some crystals because somebody said, hey, crystals are good for healing. I said, oh, I'll put crystals all over her. So I put crystals all over this little comatose child. And again, it was the same thing. Beep, beep, nothing.
Yeah, nothing.
On the 3rd night, I went back, and it was her 4th birthday. It was a terrible birthday party. They gave her little Barbie dolls, and she was comatose. And her family left, and I was all alone with her. And actually, the doctor was there with me for a little while. We both sat there silently crying because we thought, this is terrible. He left. And that was the first time that I had a very long-winded channel. And that what happened to me is a voice came through me. And the voice leaned over with my body and said, Jessica, I'm speaking to you now, and I want you to really understand. We've been trying to use hypnosis with you, and now we're going to do something more important than that. Please know that if you stay, everybody's going to be fine. Your mother, your brother, your father, they're going to be really happy. You're going to dance out of here, and you'll be just fine. And know that if you choose to leave, Jessica, that would be okay too, and they'll be fine also. And whether you stay or whether you go, Jessica, that's between you and God. And all the buzzers went off on the machines. The doctors and nurses raced in, and I ran out, slithered out is more like it, thinking, I don't know what I'm messing with. I shouldn't have said that. That is terrible. How awful. And Jessica died a few hours later. Well, the mother started seeing a medium, and she took me to see this medium. And she was a middle-aged lady, kind of fat, sitting in a chair, and the lady did this Om, and then she like started talking in all these funny voices, and I sat there with my arms folded, and I thought to myself, this is a bunch of bunk. Because that's what people do when they bring forth subpersonalities, could be past life energy. This is nothing different than that. It's bunk. That's what I'm saying. But it so happened that I went home, and the next day I was working on a book called Time Travel, the Do-It-Yourself Past Life Journey Handbook, which is one of my books. And when I was doing that, I said to my secretary, I said, hey, guess what? I can channel. She said, yeah, do it. And so there I was in my office, supposedly writing a book, right, about time travel. And I did what the little fat lady in the chair did. I did ohms, and I did a little prayer, and my voice got funny. And out came this voice, and the voice said something to the effect of, You're taking this all too lightly. You're opening a rusty door of time, and this is a fantastic thing," and talked about channeling, and then turned to my little secretary and said, "You know, last night when you were in bed with your husband and you had a conversation about whether to get pregnant, and you were concerned about back labor, and started talking about a private conversation my secretary had with her husband in her bed, and believe me, folks, I wasn't there." And I looked up at my secretary when I was done channeling, and her eyes were like saucers, and she was blown out of the water because it was identical. It was exact conversation she had had with her husband the night before.
Wow.
And I thought, like Alice in Wonderland, curiouser and curiouser. But I wasn't quite done yet because I still didn't think I was a channel or anything like that. But the next day, I was speaking at a high school here in Palos Verdes. And I speak to psychology classes at high schools about how to hypnotize yourself so you get straight A's without trying, so that you can, attract more love in your life, or get your parents to buy you a car, or whatever, whatever you want to use hypnosis for. That's practical for a person in high school. And I said to the teacher, "Hey, by the way, I can channel." And she said, "Really? Please come back and channel for my speech class on next Monday." And I thought, what have I gotten myself into? So next Monday, I was back at the high school at a speech class, and I channeled for 40 young people. And I did it with my eyes closed in those days. And when I opened my eyes, 40 young people were crying. And I thought to myself, I'm never going to do this again. This is really stupid. They make all these people cry. And they were all crying because they had contacted deceased loved ones. And they were so touched with the experience and so emotional. And the information was very detailed. And so I thought, well, better hypnotize them to be happy. So I hypnotized everybody in the room to be happy. And they're all smiling. And I left, thought, I'm done with this. And then I got a call from one of the parents. They said, "Hello, you don't know me, but we've just been robbed. Our business was robbed. Our house was robbed. And would you please come and tell us who robbed us?" And I thought, I don't know how to do that, but okay, I'll go. So I went to their house, and I was, at that time, they put me on a bed. I was lying down, and the husband and the wife were there. And my guide came through me and told them who stole everything, the license plate number, where it was taken, how they found who robbed the business, different person, the name of the guy, where he was from, all these detailed things. And that was fine. Everybody was kind of like, wow, this is weird and interesting. The husband immediately left because he was going to check out the business thing, because they own movie theaters, to see if it was accurate, which it turned out to be. And then the most important thing for me wasn't that. What was most important is suddenly across my visual field was a man's face. He was a very sweet looking man, and I could see him as clear as I'm seeing you, Janet, as clear as I'm seeing you, Sasha. And this man's face was in my visual field, filling the room. And his voice came through me and went to the young lady who I was channeling for and said, "You've asked for this for years. You've requested this for years. You said you wanted to talk to me. Well, I'm here to talk to you. And let's start with the most important thing. You're not brushing your teeth properly." And he began to give a lecture on teeth brushing. And he was going on and on about the proper way to brush teeth. And then he said, really, the jewelry that taken was unimportant. It was only a vehicle so that this lady could be here to bring me forth, because that's what you've been praying for.
Wow.
So after that, I thought, this is the stupidest thing I've ever done. I'm never going to do this again, I said to myself. And then I opened my eyes, and the lady I was channeling for ran out of the room, came back with a photograph of her father, who looked exactly like the man who had come through me. And he was an orthodontist who brushed her teeth until she was 13 years old. And I became a kind of believer. Okay.
In yourself.
And sort of believed, well, in this process, whatever it is. So it so happened that I was teaching a class at the Palos Verdes Art Center at that time called the Zen of Poetry. And at that time, I told the class I could channel. And of course, they wanted to see it. So I channeled. And when I channeled, hey, surprise, surprise, everybody loved it. And then they said, can we have lessons in channeling? And I said, okay, come to my office. And we did a 4-week session of channeling. And they liked it so much, they said, let's do 4 more weeks. And 4 weeks and 4 weeks until the class wound up going for 37 years.
Wow.
And so I've been channeling for all these years, and we had a Tuesday night group that just recently went on hiatus. And so that's what I do. I channel. And maybe if we have time in this talk, I can channel
That
for
would
you,
be great.
as well as teach people how to hypnotize themselves.
So you left us hanging with the little girl who died.
Ah, very important part of that story.
Yes.
Okay, the mother started seeing the fat lady in the chair. And the lady in the chair told her that she could channel her daughter. So she started automatic writing messages from her daughter and sent me a letter which said, I write these words through my mommy. You are the one who helped me see the angels, and you made my transition to this side most loving and easy. You are the one to light the way for many, many people. I'll be waiting here for you when it's your time to cross into spirit. Be in the light. Be in the light. Love, Jessica. And then the mother wrote, she came through me to say these words to you. And it was from that I actually was taken to see the lady in the chair. And it was from that I became a medium, a small medium at large.
So somewhere in this show, I'd like to...
You're a happy medium.
I'm a happy medium.
I'd like to address the book, the Saturday Night Live lady, the 2 ladies you told them they were pregnant.
Oh.
Do you remember that?
Yes. I got a lot of movie stars that come to my office because I'm near Hollywood. And I had 2 people from Saturday Night Live come, and they sat on my sofa. And before I ever even started channeling my guides, I just turned to them and said, you're both pregnant. And they went, no, we're not. And I said, yes, you are. And they said, that's impossible. We're not. And they were. So one of them actually wrote about me in one of her books.
She wrote a book, yes.
Yes, and I can say her name. Oh, no, I can't say her name because that wasn't in the book. Other things I said were in the book. So, yes, I've been lucky enough to channel for a lot of famous people, and it's been a trip. I never know they're famous. I never know who they are until later. You know,
right.
When I find out, wow, that was like an Academy Award winning celebrity.
Yeah.
But, when I channel, they're wonderful people.
Hey, how about the self-hypnosis you promised us for our listening audience?
Do we have time in this
We
segment?
certainly do. I did want to give, we don't have our break until 56. I wanted to let Peter talk for a moment, and then we'll go back to... What do you think?
I think that's a good idea. Let's let Peter talk, and then Peter, would you accompany me with a self-hypnosis?
Shelley,
great.
you used up all the words. I don't know if there's any left for me.
All right, so here's Peter-blum.
I'm very happy to be a guest on the show, and I thought, since I'm going to be talking about music and sound and how they dovetail for me with hypnosis and other things that I'm interested in, my own personal goulash, which we all, cook up. We all have our interests that we stir up together. But I thought I would make a few sounds here. This is a cedar flute, sometimes called Native American style, from the Plains Indians primarily. It's a low in the key of D, and so it sounds like this.
Whoa.
Beautiful.
That is beautiful.
I believe that sound and music are very, very powerful forces and can be used in many ways, but I'm particularly interested in their use for healing, for helping people change their vibration, so the my website is soundsforhealing.com, and I'm not sure exactly what. Ask me a question.
What does that mean? Soundsforhealing.com.
Yeah,
what do you do on your website? How do you incorporate sounds into your healing practice?
All right. Well, the fact is that everyone is very strongly affected by sound, and we do not live in a silent world. We live in a world that is filled with sounds, and whether they're made consciously or unconsciously, listened to on conscious or an unconscious level, they affect us. Sounds. A lot of people have said that the future of medicine will be vibrational medicine, and we're talking about vibrations of light, of oils. Essential oils have particular vibration. Food has a vibration, but understanding that nothing is still.
Like ultrasound almost.
Nothing in this world is still. From a shamanic point of view, there is no such thing as an inanimate object. Everything is alive and everything is vibrating. So we could say that somebody's relative state of health or lack of health or imbalance could be seen as a question of their vibrational state. Are they in, and we have phrases that have been around since you and I were young hippies, about good vibes or bad vibes, and that's short for vibration. So sound is a particularly almost tangible, audible form of vibration. People talk about auras. Not everyone can see auras or vibrations in the electromagnetic spectrum, but sound is something that is universal. I mean, if I take this little kalimba, which is what I was playing a little bit earlier while Shelley was speaking, and this is a simple instrument from Africa, is also known as a thumb piano, and I play, and it's a simple pentatonic scale here, and I just play a few notes. There's a certain communication that is made from that. It's a kind of a perky rhythm and a little bit syncopated, and the scale that's used is a major scale, and it has an effect on people. And when people, it's not unusual for someone to say, well, oh, there's our song. I mean, that was the song that was playing on the radio and on our first date, and it immediately. We're talking here now, switching or adding in the hypnosis channel. It immediately elicits a state it evokes a state of romance and a nostalgia and good feeling of love. And there are other sounds that I told a story. It's not a particularly happy story of a person that I worked with years ago who was very high functioning. And I didn't know much about his childhood, but we've gotten to be pretty good friends. I knew that he came from a kind of strict Italian background, Roman Catholic Italians. And one time we were sharing a hotel room and at a conference, and I took the belt out of my pants in the process of changing clothes, and it makes that particular sound, and he jumped a foot in the air. And I was like, what? And he looked startled, and he said, that's the sound that my father's belt used to make when he took it off right before he took me and my brothers down to the basement. And all of a sudden, I understood a lot more about a particular form of hypnosis that had happened with this person himself was a master hypnotist, was very wise, very knowledgeable, had helped many people. But there he was. He still had what we would call an auditory trigger into a fear state. And, all of his, 45 years of being on the planet, 50 years of working on himself, one one belt going through the pants loop, and he was immediately thrown back into that 9-year-old kid who was like going to be, you know, punished. So sounds can affect us and do all the time. In the world of NLP, which Shelley and I both are familiar with, I think Sasha, you've trained in that as well.
And neuro-linguistic
programming. Neuro-linguistic programming. There's a way of saying that a good, useful generality is to understand what somebody's primary representational system is. What is the sense channel that they process more stuff through? What do they pay more attention to? We used to use the analogy back in the old days of TV, way before, 1,001 channels that, there's, right? Oh, no pun intended there, Shelley, no. There's ABC, NBC, and CBS, and you watch them all, but which one's your favorite? So we all have, unless we have some kind of organic impairment, we all have the 5 senses that are recognized by science, plus the all-important 6th sense, which I like to say is the sense of humor. And then there are other senses as well, the high senses. But of the 5 main senses in neuro-linguistic programming has said that most people filter the world and pay attention primarily, they can be categorized as primarily visual, auditory, or kinesthetic, which means that it's what's really important to some people's how things look, to other people how things sound, and to other people how things feel. Olfactory and gustatory, the other 2 senses, which are sometimes subsumed under kinesthetic, but you do occasionally meet somebody who's a rare breed, who's, my sister's like that. I have a sister too.
I'm a dog
Sasha.
too.
Yeah. You're the dog. Yeah. My sister, anything you hand it to her, she will immediately put it up to her nose and smell it. So that's how she filters. But I am very, very paying a lot of attention to how things sound. I like to say that one of my spirit guides is Gerald McBoing Boing. And I think people remember this creature from a long time ago when he used to show cartoons at the movies. You go to a movie, first of all, you'd see 2 movies for the price of admission. And they would have newsreels before them.
You could go all day. 35 cents.
There you go.
And sneak your friends in.
Right.
Yeah, on the side door.
And they would have cartoons before.
Make out with the usher.
Usherette.
We're off on a tangent here.
Yes.
What a surprise! What a surprise!
Wait, we were talking about
reminds
the
me
movies.
of a
Where
story.
were we?
Yeah, reminds me of a story. And once I do that all the time, and I'm talking, and I'll go off on a tangent, and then that tangent leads to another tangent. Pretty soon, I don't even remember what it was that we were talking about, but I do remember it was Gerald McBoing Boing.
Yeah,
Gerald McBoing Boing. A lot of people remember Mr. Magoo. He got repopularized, and they made a Mr. Magoo film or movie, but Gerald McBoing Boing was another of those cartoons, and he was a little boy who didn't speak, but he could imitate precisely any sound. If a train went by, he was like, or if whatever sound was going on, woof, woof, any sound that you heard.
You are Gerald McBoing Boing.
I know, I'm channeling Gerald. He's one of my spirit guides. So I often say, I come from, and they say that, angels communicated through music. We use words, and we're very proud of ourselves as a language-using species. We have language. Isn't that cool? And dogs and cats don't have a spoken language. We do, and so we're far superior. But actually, one of the great statistics that I've been quoting for years, and you always have to be very wary of statistics because, about 73% of all statistics are made up. But this one says that according to university research, human communication is 58% nonverbal. In other words, I'm looking at you, you're nodding your head, you're blinking your eyes, you're smiling, you're wearing certain clothes, you're sitting forward or leaning back. That's a lot of the communication that you're giving me. 37% 7%, let's see, 58, 37%, I forget, it should add up to 100.
Ideally.
55% nonverbal, 38% pitch, rhythm, tone of voice, volume, and a whopping 7% the actual words that we use. So that's why in NLP, it's often said it's not what you say so much as how you say.
There was a guy in my Toastmasters club. We never understood a word he said, but he would talk with a French accent. He would go, and all the girls would just drool over this guy. We never understood one word he said.
Yeah. Yeah. So there is a myth, which there's some like most myths, there's some grounding in reality of the hypnotic voice, and come learn with me. I will teach you the voice, and I'm very curious about this because it pops up in fiction. You have in the famous Dune trilogy, you have the Bene Gesserit, who were the women who really ran things behind the scene, and they had a certain voice, and they taught that to Leto, was that his name? I forget. It's been a long time.
A long time.
But he could use this voice, and people would do what he said.
I've been taught that.
I'm sure you have. That's why I'm here visiting you, because you invited me.
And you do.
But
what Shelley says.
you use the voice, and in the Star Wars, I mean, this is our mythology. This is the Greeks had the guys up on Mount Olympus, and various other cultures had different mythology. Ours is Dune. It is Star Wars. It is Star Trek. This is our mythology. Mm-hmm. And in Star Wars, the Jedi Knights were taught the voice of command.
These are not the droids you're looking for.
Your Jedi tricks won't work here.
Remember, there's always someone who's immune to it. He says, heck with you, go ahead, keep talking like that silly talk. It's not going to affect me. But there is something we recognize. There's a certain energy in the voice that carries the words. That sound is a carrier wave of information. Sound is a carrier wave of information, and when we hear a certain sound, it brings information to us. And if it is loaded with language ahead of time, you can transfer a lot from one person to another. Now, the other person, like any other transmission, they have to be open to it. I believe that there's a tremendous amount of misconceptions about people being able to be hypnotized outside of their awareness. Now, somebody's got to want to make these changes. If they come into my office, I can have every trick in the world.
I'd like to address that with both of you.
Yeah.
Yes. We were talking earlier. We're going to go dark for a little bit here, but we'll end on a high note, okay?
All right, pull the
Can
shades.
you be hypnotized to do something that you don't think you would normally do, like to kill somebody or kill yourself or
be a soldier?
Well, the answer, in my opinion, is absolutely you can. There's a myth that's perpetuated among hypnotists that you wouldn't do anything you wouldn't normally do. But asking your listeners out there, have you ever bought a product you didn't need?
Yeah.
Have you ever, like if I ask you what are the golden arches, you might tell me that it's
McDonald's.
That's right. So you were hypnotized. You didn't seek that out nor even choose to accept it. So advertisers have hypnotized us. White coats have hypnotized us.
Cultural hypnosis. And when I teach hypnosis, I tell my students, because like you, Shelley, I've been an instructor for many years and trained many people. And I always say, even if you never hang out a shingle, even if you never open up a practice, you better learn this stuff because you are being hypnotized outside of your awareness all the time. And the best hypnotists in the country work for the Pentagon and Madison Avenue. And so the answer there is cultural hypnosis. There is media hypnosis. There are memes that are contagious that people don't even know are floating around the air, and they get them and they start repeating them and they hypnotize themselves. And so a lot of the great spiritual teachers say, this is all a dream, and rare it is that the person wakes up in the middle of the dream and realizes it could be a wonderful, fantastic sex dream, or it could be a scary nightmare. It's still a dream.
Listen, listeners out there, you want somebody to love you? Tell them this is the hypnotic seal. You'll probably never, ever, ever, as long as you live, find anyone who loves you as much as I do, nor will you ever, ever, as long as you live, love someone as much as you love me. That's a hypnotic seal. It's nasty, but it's nice.
You'll love this radio station more than any ever. Oh, this is a wonderful station. You'll always remember that.
I saw one of those at the San Diego Zoo, hypnotic seal. It hypnotized me into balancing a ball on my nose.
Here we go.
No, but seriously.
Seriously? You know how to do seriously?
Oh, you're getting us into our clown chakra.
Yeah, the clown chakra. The opening of the clown chakra.
Well, wait, we're going to go dark here for a minute.
Dark.
Okay.
Oh,
Janet's dark.
Really want to address this because I was kind of
derail the
shocked
dark.
by that because I had bought the myth that you can't be hypnotized to things that you wouldn't normally do. However, I'm aware of things like the Super Soldier program and war and television with all its stuff in it that's hypnotizing us to buy cereal that we wouldn't normally want to eat, and movies and the subliminals, and even there was programming in our music. Sorry, baby boomers, the music of the 60s was full of programming. That's why you bought all those bubblegum type music, yummy, yummy, yummy. I got love in my tummy because there were subliminals in there. There was a test. So I'm really fascinated.
Yeah, well, teeny weeny yellow polka dot bikini.
All those things,
Yeah.
yes.
But Janet actually hypnotized an assassin who killed people, and he was guided by hypnosis to kill people for our clandestine government.
Well, that's yeah. So Shelley, you were talking about how soldiers get hypnotized to kill because they. Will you repeat that? We talked about that earlier today.
It's so interesting because I would reckon that 99.9, here we go with a statistic that I have no idea what I'm talking about. Yes. So I would reckon that most folks are good, decent folks who would not like to take the life force away from another human being.
You're very naive, my dear.
I would just reckon that. That's my thought about humanity and about our nature.
Yes.
And so we recruit these great and wonderful, loving, kind people who care about America or care about their country, whatever country it is.
Or their families.
And their families, and they want the right thing for society. And they are then enlisted or volunteered or whatever into the service of their country. And they are systematically and very consciously hypnotized by the country to bear arms and kill other people, whether it be face-to-face combat or the drone program. They are hypnotized to do that for the good of whatever. And they may not have intentionally set out in their lives to kill anyone, but one of the biggest post-traumatic stress problems we have with people, and Richard Bach wrote about it in The Bridge Across Forever. He said, I flew the plane and I dropped the bombs, and I don't care who told me and what my belief was. I'm still completely responsible for the death of those people. And to be a conscious person, I have to own that, and I have to respect that. And a lot of people are very conflicted. They did the right thing given their values and their beliefs back to that, and yet they did the wrong thing based on their core values and their humanitarian conscience. And so we have a conflict that happens.
Yeah, you get something that in psychobabble is called cognitive dissonance sometimes.
Explain what that is, please.
Well, as James Brown said, saying one thing and doing another. That you believe, you have core beliefs, and yet you are swayed. And we use persuasion to sway people. You are swayed and convinced that it is okay to kill. You raise a good religious boy is raised and goes to church, and the commandments, thou shalt not kill, and goes to temple and thou shalt not kill. And then they're convinced and they're counter-hypnotized that it's okay to kill, and they go and they kill, and then they come back and they're out of that matrix. They're unplugged from that. They're free floating around, and they have memories and dreams of this violence that they've perpetrated, and it haunts them, and a lot of them get bonkers because they start to feel very shattered and split. There's a part of them that feels terrible about it, and there's another part that says, I was only following orders.
Yes.
Right?
So this is where hypnosis comes in and can
sure
help
does.
them resolve
Yes,
and
tremendously.
integrate. Another reason that people will do things that they really wouldn't normally do given their true consciousness is from a song by, I guess it's Willie Nelson, tell me, Willie, why do you drink? Why do you roll smoke? Why do you live out the songs that you wrote? Try to think it over. Put yourself in my position. If I get stoned and sing all night long, why, it's a family tradition. And a lot of times people who are raised by military families it's a tradition. It's expected that they will enter into that reality tunnel and take on that role. But it's not just military. It's all of us. We take on, you can go to a party and somebody goes, I'm a Republican. Well, I'm a Democrat. And they'll get in these fights over it. Or I'm a born again something and I'm a something else. And and they're going to fight with each other over beliefs. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, yes, there's endless variations on the truth, and
right.
it's sort of like. By the way, I just want to reiterate that everything that you said earlier, or just about every word, is so close to what I would have said myself in talking about hypnosis or describing it, and the idea of Richard, my original hypnosis trainer, used to say the basic program of the human biocomputer is I am right. I am right, right? And so
right.
we have, and often when I meet people, I say to them, so what's your BS? And they're like, excuse me? I'll say, well, what are your core belief systems? That's BS. And that's very important to find out. And then, as you pointed out, people go out and they filter through events, circumstance, things that are going on, reality, and they organize it into patterns that prove their belief systems because they would rather be right.
Yes.
Right?
And what's really weird is there is a part of your mind, and when we do the hypnosis, there's a part of your mind that knows what right is. I mean, righteous right.
Do the right thing.
The righteousness of being in your core system of consciousness.
Well, that's a
and that's called the
right.
higher self, right?
Yeah.
And if we can right the wrongs within our perception and get to that higher knowing, that's why I believe in humanity and humanity. I believe in us. I believe that our core essential self is pure and kindly and angelic and amazing.
Yes, amen.
Yeah, I'm a believer.
People.
I'm a believer in that. And so I believe strongly that way. And I also know that we are hypnotized. We hypnotize ourselves, number one. We're hypnotized by our family, number two. We're hypnotized by our culture, number three. And it's through repetition and through a lot of other principles that we become imprinted with a notion. I just saw something on television this morning. I saw this wonderful thing about a little girl, a cute little girl, who they've been co-imprinted, her and a duck. And she and this duck follows her around everywhere she goes, this little duck. And the interviewer asked, the girl's 5 years old, he said, okay, so when did you know this? And she said, what do you mean by this, that he's a duck? I thought that was hilariously funny. And so did the interviewer. But, she knew on a core level somehow that this was a profound connection for her. And she takes her duck everywhere she goes. And, it's a beautiful kind of thing. But we are imprinted when we're very young. Right. We're imprinted by beliefs, and we're imprinted, I have an adopted daughter who's from Bali. She's been imprinted since she was born to believe Hindu religion, and she's devoutly Hindu, and it's a beautiful religion, and it brings her a lot of peace and harmony, and her family is very well loving and very integrated. She's been hypnotized into that. Other people I know about, another very close friend Hypnotized, she's a devout Catholic. And, that's all great as long as we're not killing each other over our devotion. So, I know that Janet and Sasha are teaching you to transcend the dark side and come to the light. And I believe the light is you, and you are the light.
So give them a self-hypnosis already.
Well, we have just 1 minute before the break, and then we're going to go to break, and then
we'll have to wait
after the break and do this.
And we'll do self-hypnosis and some channeling.
After the break.
But I can assure you that you will eagerly wait for the us to come back, because we're going to have some really great things that'll help you.
Yeah, we're still waiting for the music. So,
and you are hip, and you knows everything.
and Shelley's website is hypnosisfederation.com, and Peter's, what was his?
Sound healing.
Sound healing.
Sounds for healing.
Sounds for healing. Is it the number 4 or the word 4?
It's all spelled out with letters. Sounds for healing, one word, .com.
Okay, where's my music? Come on, we want to take a break. Hey, we'll be back in 3 minutes. Aloha, and welcome back to the Sacred Matrix on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. And I'm your host, Janet Lessin, with my co-host, Dr. Sasha Lessin. And today we have our special guests, Shelley-Stockwell-Nicholas and Peter Blum. But before we get back to our show, I'd like to remind everybody to go over to that button on freedomslips.com, and please do make a donation. $1, $5, $15, $20, whatever you donate will be greatly appreciated. And we do thank you very much for your donation, which allows Revolution Radio to bring you shows like ours and all the other ones on Studio A and Studio B. Well, we've lost Dr. Lessin. He'll be back. He usually says something to you before we do the second half of the show. But Shelley and Peter, what we're going to cover, what we said to our listeners at the break, is, what was that, hypnosis?
We're going to talk about how you can hypnotize yourself so that you are not accidentally or inadvertently hypnotized or manipulated with hypnosis to buy things you don't need, believe things that don't serve you well, and to make you sick instead of thrive. And so that's our intent, or my intention, and
right.
Peter's going to accompany me with some wonderful music. He didn't know that yet,
but
I just let him know that.
Well, it'd be great for Peter. First of all, what is this? Oh, we're going to channel too. Remember that. What is this thing that you have here? What is that? What's that called?
This is called a moyo drum.
Moyo drum.
And it's and people say, well, what part of the world does that come from? And as far as I know, it comes from California.
Okay.
It's a relatively new instrument that is similar to some very ancient steel drums, but it's tuned to a scale. It's a C minor scale. It's played with little hard rubber mallets and sounds like this.
Wow, beautiful.
So that's, I believe is a kind of hypnotic, mesmerizing sound.
It is.
I've always been fascinated by sounds, musical sounds. I was raised in a musical household, so I was very fortunate. There was always music, but I was also interested in altered states of consciousness from early on.
Do tell us more about that.
Do tell us more. Well, I was part of the official 60s hippie psychedelic research team. Mm-hmm. And, we were investigating how to blow our minds. Because we the culture that we grew up in was a kind of I'm making the shape of a square here with my fingers that people out there in Radio Land can't see. But I mean, we wanted to open what Huxley called the doors of perception. We wanted to, understand the things that had been written about and kept secret for a long, long time. So in that sense, I was fascinated by certainly ingesting substances, LSD, mescaline, psilocybin, etc., but also the effect of sound and music. And why was it that I could listen to certain musics and certain sounds and it would take me out of my normal everyday reality into dream states, into visionary states, and what were the common themes that these different kinds of music had? So
what were some of the songs of the 60s? I like the Moody Blues. I would find myself traveling through space.
Yeah.
Listening to the Moody Blues.
Well, I listened to all kinds of music. I listened to all kinds of music, but I was exposed early on to what later became known as world music.
Oh.
And I heard recordings of Indonesian gamelan music, for instance, on early Nonsuch records. And they had recordings of the Tibetan monks chanting the Mahakala, the Gyuto monks chanting the Mahakala with a particular type of very deep sgoroba, and I would have visions from these, and then the sounds of African drumming. So certain cultures had learned over hundreds and thousands of years of experimentation that rhythm and pulse and duration and certain tonalities deeply affect us and can help us enter into these altered states of consciousness. So I've been working on trying to figure this out. I went and studied North Indian classical music for 3 years. I studied the sitar because I used to go and listen to that music, and that would just take me to an enchanted land. And I studied African drumming, and for the last 25 years or so, what I've mostly been involved in is what are called sacred singing metals. And this is a category that includes Himalayan singing bowls, chimes, gongs, tuning forks, tingshas, which are little cymbals, all of those things that are resonating metal, metallophones. And this moyo drum that I was playing is a contemporary version of that. And metal, resonating metal, it has can have a very long sustain. Early on, in my explorations, I am also ordained as an interfaith minister, and I was very curious about all the major world's spiritual traditions, and particularly was influenced a lot by the Tibetan Buddhists. And then in 1973, I took refuge with senior meditation master in the Kagyu lineage, Kalu Rinpoche, and Kalu Rinpoche was invited at that time. And by the way, I hail from Woodstock, New York. I live in Woodstock, New York, the most famous small town.
Did you go there and never leave or something?
In the world. No, I did not go. I can give you the very, very short version of what happened. I was living in New York City. I had started to actually go to visit the town of Woodstock that summer, 1969. But I grew up in New York. I was living in New York, and I knew a successful producer who had a beautiful penthouse. And he said, some of my friends and I are driving upstate to some little music festival next weekend. I need someone to watch my penthouse. I was like, ooh, that would be me. So I stayed in his penthouse, and they went to the Woodstock Festival.
You almost scared.
Yeah, we didn't know. But I ended up...
I was going to run away from home that weekend. I was like, 15? Yeah, 15, and my friends were a little bit older, and we were saying, well, we're going to go, and I said, well, my parents will never let me. Let's just run away.
Yeah.
But we didn't do it.
No, but I ended up moving to Woodstock. I actually had, unlike Shelley, I don't hear voices a lot. I can count on the fingers of one hand all the times that I've clearly heard a voice speaking to me, and there wasn't a person there. Um, and that was one of those times I was visiting Woodstock. I was coming up on weekends and really liked the town, but I was a staunch defender of New York City. I mean, I grew up there. New York is where it's at. It's happening. You can go out 24/7 and find a movie, place to eat. It's great. The energy, blah, 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 creative hub of the universe. And I was walking down the main street of Woodstock, and I heard this voice, and it sounded like one of those Rudy Valley megaphone voices, and said, "This is where you're supposed to live." I was like, okay, then. All right. It was very clear. And within 2 or 3 months, I had organized my affairs and moved up to Woodstock. And I kind of more or less been there ever since. But
I can't wait to go to your Woodstock Storytellers Conference. What is it called? Festival.
Yeah.
That's going to be great. The Woodstock Storytellers Festival.
Woodstock Storytellers, like Shelley, you had mentioned earlier on, being interested in the stories that people hypnotize themselves with and the stories that they tell. And this is something that I've become increasingly fascinated by. I always loved stories. And Lewis and I, Dr. Louis Malmadrona, the Coyote medicine psychiatrist and my good friend, mentor, we recently, just last week, presented on the Hypnotic Power of Stories at the IHF conference, beautiful conference, the International Hypnosis Federation Conference and Retreat in Rancho Palos Verdes. And I was pointing out that there are some magic words, there are some spells and incantations that are still around in the English language. We don't think of them as such because everybody, you say spells, everyone says, oh, Harry Potter. But there is one that's just a few words, but it will immediately cause age regression. And it's once upon a time.
Oh,
You
cool.
say those words and everybody suddenly turns into a little kid. Oh, goody, you're going to tell me a story.
Once upon a time, Peter, I promised the listeners I would teach them self-hypnosis.
Okay.
And I don't want to cheat them out of this experience because I'm sure that some people really would like to know that. So let's do that. And maybe you can bring your flute out and maybe add to it in a minute. But let's start with this.
Flute, drum, whatever you like.
Flute, please.
Okay.
Flout it. But let's start with the most important part of this. Ladies and gentlemen, listening to this wonderful show and enjoying Sasha and Janet and Peter and Shelley today, in this moment of your time, look around your world. Just open your eyes and look around your world. Now, if you happen to be driving a car and listening to this, please do not close your eyes, but in fact, keep your eyes open because I'm going to ask you to close your eyes if it's safe, right? It's probably not good to close your eyes and drive a car because then you won't see where you're going, and that's probably not too smart. So let's be smart.
Unless you have a smart car.
You might have a smart car. You might have a Tesla self-driving car today. But if you don't, please keep your eyes open. And meanwhile, look around your world. This is the world according to you. You'll notice the color. You'll notice the shapes. You'll notice the tones of everything. Just look around your world. This is called a check-in, a mental check-in. You're checking in with yourself. Good. And you'll just notice how things look. Now, in a minute, you're going to close your eyes if you can safely do that. And if not, just keep your eyes open and just relax. And those who can safely close their eyes, go right ahead and close your eyes. Those who are driving your car, keep your eyes open, but you can enjoy this experience. So go ahead now and take a full breath to the bottoms of your feet and hold it in. Here we go. Hold it. And when you let it out, relax a little bit. That's good. That's right. And breathe in again. This time breathe to the lower part of your lung. Here we go. And then let it out. And we'll do a third breath now. This time very slow and easy going. Breathe to your brain. Here we go. Hold it in, ladies and gentlemen, and then let it out and relax your mind just a little bit more. That's good. That's right. Now, if your eyes are closed, think of a beautiful color like blue. And if your eyes are open, you can still think of a beautiful color like blue. And let blue wash through your body and mind. That's right. That's good. And as blue washes through your body and mind, imagine that your eyelids are relaxed and don't feel like opening. Or just imagine yourself relaxing just a little bit more. And now imagine yourself very gently thinking of that color and moving down a very nice set of 5 stairs or 5 plateaus. And with each step you take, or each level you take, going deeper and deeper and deeper into the center of your own wisdom and knowledge. That's right. That's good. Now we come to this place, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And when we reach this sacred place called 1, you think about the number 1 person in your life. That person has your name. And that person with your name is gifted with a part of their mind, your own mind, that is wise beyond wise. And that part of your mind, we'll call it your higher self, your all-knowing self, your all-gnawing self, your wise beyond wise self. And that wise beyond wise self is listening to you right now and conversing with you right now. So go ahead and have that internal knowing that's the truth for you. Let it scan your body and mind, and particularly your body, and see the state of your health. If there's any place in your body that needs a little renewal, a little reactivation, a little stimulation, a little balancing, breathe there. And your higher self will help you to thrive and feel well and be well. As you continue to breathe now, enjoying the sacred breath, let your higher self assist you to scan your thoughts. If there's any thought that's not serving you well, just let it go with your out breath. Just let it go. Replace it with a better thought. Now, this wise beyond wise part of you has been trying to get your attention for a long time. So you might consider this little self-hypnosis exercise getting high with your higher self, because it has one job to do, and that's to make you feel great, to feel terrific. So if there's anything emotionally you've been doing that's made you feel bad or poorly, let that go with the out breath. Inspiration and harmony and balance. Inspiration and relaxation. Inspiration and balance. You can now think of something you want for yourself. Imagine it inside a golden heart, perhaps. You can see it or feel it or smell it or taste it or hear it or intuit it. And understand this law of the mind, ladies and gentlemen. The power to imagine something as you're doing right now that you want for you is the identical power that makes it real. And the fact that you're imagining it means it's already happened in time and space. It is so. It is so. It is so. And now we'll come back to room awareness, feeling refreshed and invigorated, as if you had a wonderful nap for maybe 10, 15 minutes, or maybe even an hour, because you'll come back feeling great. And those with your eyes open, you'll just feel sparkly fresh. Those with your eyes closed, just start to open them to the count of 5. 1, 2, 3. Feeling great and perfect from head to toe. 4 and 5. Nice stretch if you can. One hand above your head and the other hand above your head. And the word is yes, 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 yes. And go smile on yourself. Smile all over yourself. Smile on the people around you, because A smile makes you look a lot nicer than a frown. And you've just mastered self-hypnosis. And how long did it take you? Not very long at all. So everybody smile again, because you just mastered self-hypnosis. Peter, thank you for that beautiful, beautiful flute
it was
music.
lovely.
That was gorgeous.
Oh, thank you for asking me. I was trying to walk away from the mic so it would be
Not
sound
so
like
loud.
distant flute music, you know.
Ooh, it was highfalutin.
Well, you know, the flute shows up over and over again. Lord Krishna played the flute, and the gopis were enchanted. And then there was a little fella named Kokopelli that some people may be familiar with, sometimes called the Hunchback Casanova of the Pueblos.
Whoa!
He had a little hump but a big flute.
Wasn't he the good time had by all?
Yeah. The women really liked him, but the men weren't so sure.
Pied Piper was a story of
Oh,
a
that's
flutist that was
Pied Piper,
hypnotized
yeah.
children.
Yes.
Took all the rats out, too.
Well,
Yeah,
now-
don't welsh on your bargains there, you know, on your
Yeah.
agreements. You could pay the price.
How about the Music Man?
Yeah.
Well, actually, I mentioned I grew up in a musical household. My dad was an operatic baritone by night. He was a sort of Jekyll and Hyde character. He was a salesman by day, but his great dream and passion was to be an opera star. And I used to go and watch him. And the actual operas were kind of boring for a 5 or 6 year old. There were hours of people singing at the top of their lungs in a language that I didn't understand. Nowadays, you can go to a large opera. They have the screens that flash the translation. They didn't have that then. But what was really amazing to me was watching in shamanism, they talk about shape-shifting. And I actually would see my man, my husband, my father, my wife, my grandfather, whatever he was, you know, that dude.
That dude,
And go backstage and take off his seersucker suit and put down his attaché, his briefcase, and
It was like magical moments.
and put on makeup and a costume, and then I'd go and I'd watch this other person come out on stage. And it was magical sounds that are appearing here. And one of the roles that he played was Papageno, the Birdman in The Magic Flute, which is a very famous opera. Yes,
isn't that
so? You
fabulous?
know, here's my dad coming out dressed like a bird, and
that's shape shifting.
and I have a thing with owls, you know, so I think he may have had some effect on me.
Yes, that's right. I think it might have. So
Well,
the other thing that we're going to do.
Yes,
how are
I
we
just
doing on
wanted.
time?
We're doing good. It's 19 after the hour, so we have another like 40 minutes approximately.
Can I just pick up
go
pick
ahead.
up a thread,
Any-
because we dropped a thread there, and you've got to pick up every stitch.
Okay.
Yes,
And
you are a
you've got to
stitch.
pick up every stitch, and it must be the season of the witch. And we
Symbolic.
had free associate here, and that you had mentioned the Woodstock Story Festival, and I started talking about stories, and then I mentioned those magic words once upon a time.
Right.
And when
Oh,
I
yes.
was studying hypnosis early on, now you're 38 years, I'm your junior, I've only been at it for 30 years, but 30 years ago when I was first introduced to the work of the amazing Dr. Milton Erickson, who profound influence on me, and the closest I ever came to channeling was one time I got in a wheelchair and I started to talk like Milton Erickson. But anyway, he died in 1980, so he wasn't around, but I read everything I could. And the first book of his that I ever read was called My Voice Will Go With You, and it's a collection of the teaching tales of Dr. Erickson. And the fellow who was teaching me, Richard, said, you know, you should read this book. And Erickson hypnotized people by telling them stories. He got them into trance by telling them stories, and he made suggestions to them by telling them stories. So I'm reading this book, and it's fascinating. And there are stories in there about Erickson's children and his parents and his grandparents and various clients that he's worked with. And they're short. They're anywhere from a couple of paragraphs to 2 or 3 pages. They're profound. They're amazing. He was so creative and so clever and so inventive. And I said to Richard, it's extraordinary. Dr. Erickson had the perfect story for just about every situation. And Richard said, yes. And no one knows how many, if any of them, are true. And that was one of those aha moments for me, a moment of revelation where you think, well, what does that mean? What does that mean? And in Buddhism, they talk about relative truth and absolute truth. And I think that Erickson's stories may have been modified to fit the occasion. He may have embellished them. He may have tailored them so that they would be better heard by whoever he was talking to. So they were maybe relatively not true, but on an absolute level, they were true.
Yes.
And so we hone to absolute truth. We always want to, and the other thing that's said in storytelling circles is never let the facts get in the way of a good story.
Well, my topic at your conference is going to be, this is a true story I'm making up.
I'm making up, yes.
Yes, this is a true story I'm making up. And I do have some true stories. I try not to embellish them too much, however, they are true. One of my favorite true stories is a story about, I was having a hard time. I suspect some of the listeners out there have had maybe a bump in their road of life. And when they had the bump in the road of life, they would like a little assistance, perhaps, or they'd like to cry a little or complain a little. Well, I was complaining a lot. And so I was with my friend Dennis, a friend of Sasha's and mine. And I was telling my friend Dennis, I said, Dennis, things are so terrible and everything's awful. And I went through a whole litany of all the terrible things that were happening. Our mother had died, and Sasha's and my brother was suing us over her estate, and all kinds of terrible things like that. And so I just was complaining to Dennis, and I feel so bad because of this and that and the other thing. And Dennis turned to me and he said, Shelley, what do you want? And I said, well, I want to be happy. And he turned to me and he said, then be happy. That was it.
Yeah.
That was it. That was the whole story.
Like, don't worry.
Be happy. It's like, if you want to be happy, be happy. And of course, in that moment, I wanted to punch his lights out. I was very annoyed by his advice. But then it sunk in, and I let it think in, and I let it sink in. And what happened is I got it. The message was loud and clear. And that's what happens in a story.
Yes.
The person may resist it at first or not even connect to it.
They're not even aware that
No,
you're
and all
giving
of a
them
sudden I went, if you want to be happy, be happy. It's like that simple. And
isn't that what people do? They go around complaining, or they might say, I'm sick, and they're actually
and they're hypnotizing themselves.
Yeah, they're hypnotizing themselves to be sick, or to have all these negative things happen. So what do you recommend to someone that's
well, first of all,
these programs?
There are negaholics. They are absolutely positively hell-bent on negativity. And you hear them, and if you hang out with one, they suck you dry. You feel like you've been slimed, and you want to get away from them. And if you take a long road trip with them, you want to kill yourself. Okay? So what do you do about it? Well, everybody out there, repeat after me. Here we go. I am keenly aware of my self-talk.
I am keenly aware of my self-talk.
And I quickly change it to positive.
And I quickly change it to positive.
My self-talk is positive.
My self-talk is positive.
I'm keenly aware of my outer talk.
I'm keenly aware of my outer talk.
And I quickly change it to positive.
And I quickly change it to positive.
My words are positive.
My words are positive.
My thoughts are positive.
My thoughts are positive.
I am positive that I'm positive.
I'm positive I'm positive.
It is positively so.
It's positively so.
Amen.
A women,
a woman, a life. Hooray!
Now, that story that you told is a wonderful story, Shelley, and it reminded me of a quote that I have of Dr. Erickson's on my wall. He said, it's not the amount of time, and it's not the theory of psychotherapy. It's a matter of reaching the personality by saying the right word at the right moment. And that, right? You know, and that great teachers have that ability. They're watching, they're paying exquisite attention. And they see that little opening, that window open for a second, boom, the dart goes in and they've got you.
Yes.
They know just when to say that word at that moment. And that's, you know, it's a lot of the time I'm waiting. I'm waiting for that moment to arrive. You have all been waiting for that moment to arrive, you know.
Yeah, you got me with the dart, buddy.
Yeah. It's a great example of
Yes.
that, you know. So we're paying attention all the time, and people love that when we give them our attention.
They do.
Right?
They love that. And, you know, it's an interesting thing about attention. A lot of people don't pay attention to their attention, and they don't pay attention to their intention. And a lot of people are suffering from a disease I call ID, intention deficit disorder.
Amen.
And they don't have an intention of being happy. Now, I worked with Orman McGill, and we taught many classes together, and we wrote 4 books together. And he had one thing in our book called Everything You Ever Wanted to Know About Everything. And it was right up the same, kind of the same attitude that you're conveying here, Peter. And it was this: I think what I want to think. And I stop thinking when I want to stop thinking. I think when I want to think. So I think what I want to think, and I stop thinking when I want to stop thinking, and I think what I want to think. So you become the master of your own thoughts, or in Norman's words, you become a mastermind, the master of your mind. And mastering your mind is something really important and critical to your well-being. Which brings me to a really important subject before we get off the subject of hypnosis, and I'll pose this to all of you, all of the audience here with us today, and also all of you out there listening, and the 4 of us here who are on the air. What is mind? What is mind? Any answers?
I give that which thinks.
That which thinks. How about you? What do you think it is, Peter?
What's mine is mine. What's yours is yours.
Alex, what do you think mind is?
I think mine's what you dig.
Okay.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
So I know these 4 things about mind, and I'm going to share them with you. First, mind, whatever it is, transcends time. It is a kind of amorphous, universal kind of lens where you cave dive into some subterranean thing we call thought. In other words, it's sort of a non-linear experience. It's
non-local.
And it's subjective.
Yeah.
Also, mind performs a kind of alchemy. So let's say you eat no fat. Your mind, or whatever, transforms the non-fat into fat, and it keeps you, from starving to death, let's say. Your smile will initiate some kind of mind that will make you feel better, or the positive affirmation will make you feel better.
So, Shelley, the ancient mind-body spirit triangle that's been in many systems, a lot of the times they viewed mind as like the interface between body and spirit.
Yes.
It's that the part that translates the in between, back and forth, from totally abstract and totally ephemeral into very concrete.
Yeah, it's sort of the one role.
Mind is whatever you think.
That's right, and you're right, because it's subjective. So what you think it is correct, and what Janet thinks it is, and what Sasha thinks it is.
Well, it's really the existential field.
Could be. So.
Well, that's what you think.
And he's right when it comes to himself. So mind, we know, or whatever that is, there's something that we do that affects function, and it can affect structure, or structure can affect function. There's some interplay that it's the mediator between 2 items, perhaps, or more.
Relationship.
Spirit and structure and function, and maybe 3 items, maybe everything. And then finally, the thing that I find so interesting is that mind is the great creator or the great destroyer. And what I mean by that is it's a two-edged sword. It can bring you to heights of ecstasy, and it can slam you to the pits of hell. And how you think creates your life and your reality, and what you do, what you don't do, what you absorb, what you don't absorb. And if you are mindful, if you are conscious of consciousness itself, you have the opportunity to be in bliss all the time. And that's what I like to teach my students. That's what I teach myself every day. And I hope that perhaps the words of Dennis will resonate with some of you. If you want to be happy,
Be happy.
use your mind, be happy.
So, what about those people who love being miserable?
God bless you.
Yeah. You know, in the Zen tradition, well, first of all, I want to quote Leadbelly: "Relax your mind. Relax your mind. Makes you feel so fine. Sometimes you've got to relax your mind." So in the Zen tradition, the student came to his teacher and he said, "You know, I'm trying to calm my mind, and I just cannot do it." And the teacher put his hands on his hips and looked at the student and said, "Well, where is that mind? Bring it to me right now. I'll have a good talking to with it."
Oh, yes.
But, you know, that's, of course, points it out. Where is it? It's not here. It's not there. It's
a phenomenon.
It is, and that takes you into Husserl and phenomenology, which is a whole other can of worms. But working with Louis Malmadrona, who I mentioned earlier, who also, along with you, Louis and his wife Barb, who just wrote this amazing book called Remapping the Mind, the neuropsychology of transformation through story, how it works in the brain, where story goes, what parts of the brain are engaged when we hear a story. And he's, he knows all this stuff because he's got all the right letters after his name. He's a
FUD.
He's a FUD.
And he's an MD, and a MUD, and a FUD.
And a FUD. And so Louis is also of Cherokee and Lakota heritage. And he's very interested in Lakota culture. And he's learning the language. And he said, it's interesting, it's difficult to talk psychology with the Lakota because there is no word in their language for self. There is no word for self. So we're self-actualization, self-image, self-confidence. We're all about self. There's no word for that. The closest word, he said, is Nagi. And Nagi translates as swarm. So when I perceive you, I see a swarm, like a swarm of butterflies or bees that's constantly changing shape and form, and it is a swarm of stories. Story is all there is. You are a swarm of all the stories you've ever heard about yourself growing up, or that you've told other people, or stories that you tell yourself and actually believe, and it's constantly changing and shifting. So in our work, whether it's doing hypnosis or NLP or channeling, we say there are no bad people. I believe with you that inside everyone is bodhicitta. Everyone has the awakened self inside. There are just bad stories. There are bad stories. So our job is to help someone become aware of what those stories are. If they're working, fine. If they're helping people be happy and healthy and prosperous and loving, great. They probably wouldn't be coming to see us as clients anyway. But if they're in a stuck state trance, if they're telling themselves stories that are impoverished versions of reality, then we can help them change those stories. And one of the best things to do is to question the story. This show goes to some sort of non-PG rated areas from time.
Definitely.
Definitely. Okay.
Just to use big words for it.
Big words. Yeah. No. Yeah. So here's the story of Trungpa Rinpoche, great crazy wisdom teacher from the Buddhist lineage. And I heard this from a woman who was high up in his organization. And Trungpa slept with many of his female disciples. But he was very open about it. He didn't keep it hidden. He did that. And this particular woman had been anorgasmic for many years. And he was called to the master's bed one night, and she said he wasn't a particularly skillful lover. But at one point, he looked at her, he said, "Okay, now you can have an orgasm." And she did.
Permission
So,
from the great guru.
well,
Yes.
you know, it's like you want to be happy, be happy.
Exactly.
It's the timing. In that moment, he knew he could say it. It wasn't because he had the power.
Right.
But at that moment, she
Wow.
could hear it and she could act on it.
What a story.
Right. A
That
good story,
is
huh?
really
Wow.
great. Wow,
Do you have
wow,
a comment,
wow.
honey?
Well, just the realization that you want something, you realize that's contrafactual because you're wanting it and you can directly seize it instead of wanting it.
Yeah, I seize it and I wants it.
Hail Caesar.
Well, before we run out of time, we promised our listeners that Shelley is going to channel for us.
Channel.
So let's switch gears a little bit. Are we complete with the hypnosis thing for?
Oh, absolutely. So,
Okay.
I mean, we
can always come
could
back to
talk
it.
about it for years. So
Yes.
let's talk about channeling. Everybody here has the ability to bring forth energy, whether it be through their hands, through their thoughts, through their energy field. And I channel through voice. And I have guides that come through me. And please know that the voice that comes through me, I believe, is not me. I really believe it. Now, listeners, you can believe whatever you like, but I hope that my hope is that the information that comes through will serve you well. So let me take a deep breath now and get into center. And I let out a little Om. Om. Hello, everybody. I am Kendra. I am an angel, but I do not have any wings, and I am happy to talk to you on this day of your time. I am very, very happy to be in a machine that goes to many, because actually we are all in spirit machines that go out to many. We are a vibratory force field, and if I were to have a bumper sticker, it would say Spirit does it with frequency. Aren't I adorable?
Oh, yes.
Yes. So my message to you on this day of your time is simply this. You came here not alone. You came here with guidance. You came here with friends. You came to this earth walk being protected and looked after. Some of you say, well, why did some bad things happen to me? And I will tell you, it was part of some divine plan for you to have an earth walk experience and learn something. I know that sounds unpleasant, but the pleasant outcome is joy and harmony and laughter and celebration. So I will tell you plain and simple, we are here to love you, protect you, and honor you. And if you would like to meet your own personal guardian angel, follow my instruction right now. Sit up quite straight wherever you are. And just ask from your own core of being. Ask from your own core of being. Say, I would like to meet my angel. I know that Shelley says if you're driving a car, you need to keep your eyes open, which is perfectly acceptable to us all. But make sure your spine is straight, because the straight spine makes this process a lot easier. Please take a full breath and allow the prana or energy of breath to move through your body, and let it out with grace and ease, which suits you best. And now you are to think the first answer that comes to your mind as I give you this simple assignment, please. As you sit up quite straight and breathe as you are doing now, imagine behind you is a guide or angel that is for your highest good, that will make you feel and think and be your finest self. Just think that thought and ask that guide or angel right now to stand clearly and fully behind you. And answer my question with the first thing come to mind. And all of you here in the room, please answer. Is your guide behind you tall, short, or medium? First answer come to mind. Tall, short, or medium? Out loud, please.
Short.
Again, tall, short, or medium?
Short.
Good, very good. Does your angel have long wings, short wings, or no wings at all? First answer come to
None.
mind. Again, long wings, short wings, or no wings at all?
None.
Good, very good, very good. Is the angel behind you? What color is around the angel? First color come to mind, please.
Blue.
Again.
Green.
Blue.
Good, very good, very good, very good. Take deep breath. Is your angel male, female, or neutral?
Male.
Again, good. Let your angel come into your spine if you choose, and let them go right through your spine into your heart chakra. Right into your heart from your spine. Let it come right through into your heart, and say hello to your angel. Let them sit there, and I will be quiet for just a quick moment, and let them be peaceful. And when they are peaceful, they will say their name out loud. I will be silent for a moment as you breathe. First name come to mind.
Irving.
Again. First name.
Mikhail.
First name.
Black Diamond.
Next name. First word. Don't censor. Again. First name come to mind. Say it out loud again, all together.
Irving. Diamond.
Thank you. Very good. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Now, I'm speaking directly to your angels. They are present as you are. Let your angel now, I'm speaking to your angels and guides, all the people listening this show, including the technology people in the studio. Please let your angel scan your body, and if there's any part of your body that needs extra help, nourishment, or clarification or balance, breathe there with you. So your body is now coming to balance and harmony and feeling quite refreshed. Good job. Good job. Thank you, angels. Angels, answer this question out loud directly from the angel voice or from the being who's channeling you. When did you first come into their life? Was it now or another time? First answer?
Birth.
Again, they come in now for the first time or another time? First answer out loud,
Another
please.
time.
Good. Take deep breath. Very good, very good, very good. Make a mental note, you, the being that is bringing forth the angel, how you brought them forth. You thought of them behind you, you had your spine straight, you breathed fully, and you allowed them to enter through the spine and through into your heart, and you allowed them to be present. Remember, you can do this anytime you need any extra guidance or any clarity of thought, emotion, physical renewal, or even a sense of upliftment and greater purpose. Take deep breath, please, sweet ones. And I will deliver a message to both the guides and to you. We come here as friends, we come here as lovers, and we come here as deep support for you in your earth walk. Many, many, many souls wanted this earth walk, and you got it. There are not that many earth walks available for all the spirit energies and entities that would like to come in this time at the 21st century. You are coming here for what we call a quickening of energy. The earth herself is quickening her energy. The cosmos is in a beautiful, loving conspiracy to do you all good. And there is now strands of energy moving through all dimensions to bring us harmony and a web of understanding that transcends from center earth to the walking beings on the earth, the swimming beings on the earth, the airborne beings on the earth, the creeper crawlers, all of the atmospheric beings, and all of those in the outer works. Please know that you are part of this web, and it's no accident you are here, and we are joyous to make this connection, and we hope you will celebrate it with us. We laugh with you all the time, and we rarely, if ever, cry with you because we believe all should be joy. And that is my message, and I am Kendra. You may call me Kindred Kendra or Kandara, and I love you each. And if you like to speak to me, you may contact my guide that I come through. She is my channel, Shelley-Stockwell. Now I bring you back. Let the guide come through your spine, back behind you, standing tall, spine straight, and thank them for coming. Thank you. Thank you for coming. And let them now fade into the cosmos where they are. and come back into your body fully awake, alert, and feeling very, very great to be you and very, very happy for your earth walk. Please tap your place between your breastbone. It's called your thump, your thymus, gently, gently, gently. We don't want you beating up on yourself. And thank your heart for beating, your lungs for inflating. Now gently tap your third eye. Thank you, third eye, for allowing this to happen. And tap your crown chakra to say, I am joyous with spirit. I am joyous with spirit. And I leave you now with great blessings and goodbye.
Thank you, Kendra. Thank you, Shelley.
You are so welcome. That was really wonderful. I love to channel my guide. People ask me what is it like to channel, and I'll explain that simply. It's like having a nap. I remember everything, however, unless it's not of interest to Shelley and her personality, myself. But most of the time I remember what I channel. I'm not like Edgar Cayce, they call the sleeping prophet, who didn't remember. I remember things, and then over time it fades like a dream. So somebody will run into me somewhere and say, when you told me blah, 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 you changed my life, and I'll look at them sometimes and I don't remember what I told them. So that's the fade out that happens later, but I do remember right now what just happened, and it was wonderful, and I was happy to do that for you. And so namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste to all of you.
Do you channel anybody else besides Kendra?
I do. I channel an alien. He's very weird, I think. He doesn't think he's weird, however. His name is Gurlane. He comes from another planet, and he's quite intriguingly interesting. I had to make an agreement with Gurlane because when I channeled him, his frequency was so high that I would feel just wiped out afterwards. So I told him he could only come through me if he was pleasant. And so we made that agreement, and that's something some people don't know. When you channel, you make an agreement with spirit, and they will honor that agreement. I channel many, many entities. I channel Master Chang. I've channeled Jesus. I've channeled Buddha. I've channeled, of course, people's deceased relatives. I've probably channeled, well, this is a dead entity job. I told you. I've channeled hundreds and hundreds.
Feather.
One of my dominant guides is Red Feather. He's beautiful. He's a Native American. He's Apache origin, and he's taught me the ways of the people. And I'm very grateful for his teachings. And we've taken many people on vision quests, and it's been very rewarding, very, very rewarding. I love Red Feather. And on some level, Red Feather is my soul. And it's hard to explain this because I don't understand it myself. Kendra is not my soul. Kendra is a great teacher that I'm privileged to bring forth. Red Feather is my soul, and he tells stories.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. He loves to tell stories.
So would you say you're an incarnation of Red Feather? He was a previous incarnation?
Well, when I do past life regression, I have been privileged to bring him forth. And not only bring him forth, but bring forth 5 other entities in the same time frame. And so I think he's one of my lifetimes. He's also one of my early guides. So it's a little hard to distinguish this for me. He's very beautiful, and he likes to teach, and speaks quite simple stories. I don't know how much time I have. I could bring another guide for
we have about 8 minutes if you want to bring in somebody for a few minutes.
Okay, who do you want me to bring forth?
Who wants to come forth?
Bring forth somebody who would benefit the world most at this particular moment.
Very good. Just give me a moment, please. I'm going to do an Om.
This is Daisy. Daisy ain't crazy. Daisy loves you. You are Daisy. You bloom and you flower and you seed yourself. You are the person who seed yourself. You are a flower in your own garden. You're your own product of your own fertilization, your own seed, and you are a flower in your garden. I am Daisy. Don't be lazy. Don't be crazy. Just be a daisy. Goodbye.
Wow. All right then.
Hello there. I am Abraham, and I wish to bless you all with the knowing that we are all of the same lineage. We came here today to speak on a machine of energy vibrations. You have always been called for to speak on a machine of energy vibrations. We are each the Abraham. The Abraham gets its frequency from the earth. The Abraham has as its core heat, and heat creates the frequency and vibration. You are connected to all frequencies and vibrations from all planetary structures. And through the core of heat, we connect our frequencies. I hope I am not speaking in a way that is confusing, but I invite you all to allow yourself to note the energy of heat and frequency. It is the gift of all life forms in all dimensions. Goodbye. Everybody shake your hands, please. Let your hands hang, let them drain. Take a gentle breath, please. If you can raise both hands, or if you're driving, only raise one hand. The word is yes. Yes, 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 yes. You shake your hands just a little bit more, and shake your body just a little bit more. Get into your body and know that you are a perfect conduit of love and light. And if you'll just simply take the moment to go in, you'll find out.
All right, we're back. That was wonderful.
Thank
We
you.
have 5 minutes. Peter, what would you like to say?
Okay,
And then we'll
so
give Shelley the
we
final words.
sort of, dropped these words a few times about the Woodstock Story Festival, and from my consuming interest in stories, I realized at some point in the fall that I knew all of these consummate storytellers, extraordinary storytellers, and I decided to organize and produce the first Woodstock Story Festival, which will be April 30th and May 1st, and it'll be held in Woodstock. And if people are more interested, there's a separate website, woodstockstoryfestival.com. I will be there. Dr. Louis Melmadrona and his wife Barb will be there. The one of the most extraordinary elders in the storytelling movement, a woman named Gioia Timpanelli, who worked with Robert Bly and Joseph Campbell, and she's, a doyen. She lives right in Woodstock. She will be a featured presenter. David Gonzalez. People bringing in, this is a celebration of story in the arts, in business, in therapy, in entertainment, in education, every aspect of story, both mythological stories, fairy tales, and the idea of working with personal stories, both ends of that. So I'm very excited about that.
I'm excited to
invite
go
everyone
there.
to come and get tickets now while they're still available. And in years to come, you could say I was there the first year that it happened. It was small and intimate before we had to rent Madison Square Garden.
Wow. Thank you, Peter.
And I'd like to also add that I enjoy hearing from anyone out there. If you'd like to call me, my phone number is 310-541-4844. Or you can go to hypnosisfederation.com. And my name is Shelley-Stockwell-Nicholas. And my friend here is Peter Blum. And he has a phone number, too, if you'd like to give it out.
My number is 845-247-8839.
Okay, we have 2 minutes. So, Shelley, tell us about your organization.
Okay. So the International Hypnosis Federation is open to anyone who's interested in mind, body, spirit, fun, and money. Those are the 5 pillars of our organization. We decided that we needed an organization where we celebrate the human spirit and we try to pass on the gift. And our phrase that we like to use is changing one person at a time. And we believe that if we can teach everyone on the planet to tap their own resources of joy and harmony, they will pass that on to everyone they know and will change the world for the better. HypnosisFederation.com and the Hypnosis Federation, the International Hypnosis Federation, is now in its 18th year. It was formed by a group of like-minded people, some very wise people in the field, Orman McGill, myself, James Wanless, Dick Sutphen. We had a large, wonderful group of very brilliant people that came together and said, we want to form an organization that really honors spirit among the other practices. And we felt that was sorely lacking in many of the other organizations. Spirit was being maybe dissed or even discounted. So we find that to be very important. And of course, we honor all beliefs, and as long as they're kindly toward one another.
And you just had your annual conference. You have one conference a year?
Yes, the conference is called It's All About You for Mind, Body, Spirit, Fun, and Money. And this year we had a retreat, and it was fabulous. We had some amazing speakers. We do encourage people to speak. It's an open forum. We also encourage people to write for our newsletter, the Hip News. And if anybody would like to find out about how to join, just go to hypnosisfederation.com. We have a very active group.
There's our music, and thank you very much, Shelley and Peter.
Yes,
Sasha,
mahalo.
and the listening audience here, and the listening audience up there in right space.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Listen to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Who owns you? If you're not in control, then someone else is. Join me, Ivy West, for Voices on the Wind, Saturday from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern in Studio A. I discuss government, health, metaphysics, suppressed science, universal mysteries, little-known incredible facts, alternative energies, and even more than you can imagine. Won't you join us on Revolution Radio Saturdays from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern for Voices on the Wind with me, Ivy West.
There are lives in the balance, people under fire, children at the cannons.
Because if your head's in the sand, your tail is a target.